The stars are watching, and so am I. I'm Lyla, your storyteller for tonight. 안녕하세요, 라일라입니다. 이 채널은 어른들을 위한 Bedtime Story를 영어로 들려드리고 있습니다. 영어 공부에 대한 부담은 잠시 내려두고 잔잔하고 편안한 이야기와 함께 하루의 피로를 내려놓아 보세요. 오늘의 이야기는 풋풋한 첫사랑의 이야기입니다. 그럼 시작해 볼게요. And tonight's story is about first love. First love is a quiet kind of magic, unexpected, tender, and unforgettable. It's a story that begins in the heart and stays there forever. Tonight, we'll see the magic from two sides. First through the eyes of a boy as he discovers the wonder of his feelings. And then from a girl's perspective as her heart answers in its own way. So find a comfortable place to rest, close your eyes, and let me take you into their story, where heart beats a little faster and everything feels a little brighter. Let's begin. The melody of first love. My first love began with music. We met in high school during orchestra practice. She played the violin and I played the cello. Despite the age gap, she was 2 years older. Fate had seated us across from each other. Our eyes often met over the sheet music, and I couldn't help but notice her. She wasn't flashy or loud, just kind and warm, the kind of person who made you feel at ease simply by being near her. She played the violin beautifully. It was impossible not to look at her as she moved her bows across the strings. The violin and cello, two very different sounds. Maybe that's why I was drawn to her. Not just because of her music, but because she embodied the affection and warmth I felt I had been missing in my own life. We started with shy glances exchanged during rehearsals, but it didn't take long for those glances to turn into conversations after practice. Before I knew it, our connection blossomed into something more. She was there for me in ways I didn't even know I needed. Cheering me on at volleyball games, walking beside me when I wandered aimlessly instead of going home. She never judged me, even when I was lost in my own restless thoughts. Her presence made me feel seen in a way that was unfamiliar yet comforting. One memory stands out vividly, the day of our first kiss. We were sitting on the school stairs after orchestra practice, sharing small stories and dreams as the sky outside dimmed into twilight. The stairwell grew quiet as the evening deepened, and for a while, we just sat there in silence. But it wasn't awkward, it was peaceful. As though the world had paused just for us. Then, without saying a word, we leaned in, and our lips met. It was soft and sweet, and for a second, it felt like I was floating. For a time, we became one of the it couples at school, the ones people noticed but admired. We weren't loud or showy, just quietly devoted to each other. She made me feel grounded, as if I was part of something bigger than myself. But as time passed, something began to shift. As much as I cared for her, I was still a teenager, immature and restless in a way I didn't fully understand. I craved independence, but didn't know how to communicate that without hurting her. Instead of being honest, I let my silence grow between us like a wall. I started staying out later, using excuses that didn't make sense, and pretending I was fine when I wasn't. She deserved better, but I didn't know how to tell her that I felt trapped, not by her, but by my own confusion. One day after rehearsal, she asked me, "Are you okay?" I wanted to tell her everything, but instead, I just nodded. I can still see the way her face fell, just for a second, before she smiled like nothing was wrong. I was too afraid to admit the truth. I wasn't ready to be the person she needed. When she went off to college, it felt like the natural end to our story. There was no dramatic breakup, no final argument. We simply drifted apart. She deserved a more thoughtful goodbye than I gave her. Now looking back, I realize how much that relationship taught me. She was my first love, but also my first lesson in what it means to truly care for someone. Not just during the good moments, but when things became complicated and uncertain. I learned that if you care about someone, you have to communicate, not just hope things will fix themselves. She's now just a memory, but I am grateful for what we shared. It wasn't perfect, and neither was I. But for a time, we made beautiful music together, even if our duet didn't last forever. Sometimes, the most important lessons come from the things that don't last. The boy with the cello. They say opposites attract, and maybe that's why I liked him. He was 2 years younger than me, but more mature and calm than most kids his age. There was something quiet and thoughtful about him that made him stand out. I won't lie, he was adorable too, in a way that made you want to ruffle his hair. But there was something deeper beneath the surface, something I couldn't quite name, but felt compelled to understand. I play the violin, the instrument that plays the high, bright notes. He played the cello, its deep, rich sound that felt like a heartbeat. As the concertmaster, I was responsible for leading the group and making sure everything went smoothly. I was used to being in charge, the one who kept things under control. But then there was him, the boy who always blushed and looked away shyly whenever our eyes met. At first, I thought it was just cute. But over time, I found myself watching him more. There was something different about him. He wasn't a troublemaker, not really. But he had that hint of rebellion in him. That restless energy that made you wonder what he was searching for. One day after practice, I found him behind the school, sitting on the grass with a cigarette in his hand. He looked surprised when he saw me, but I didn't scold him. I sat down next to him instead. "You know this isn't great for you," I said with a small smile. He laughed softly, almost embarrassed. "Yeah, I know." Moments like that became our thing. Instead of trying to fix him, I stayed beside him. And little by little, I saw small changes. He stopped smoking, not because I forced him to, but because he wanted to. He showed up to the practice on time, took school a bit more seriously, and I was glad. I felt like I was helping him, giving him the peace he was missing. But I didn't realize back then that trying to change someone, even for good reasons, can be selfish. I wanted to save him, but he didn't need saving, at least not in a way I thought. Loving someone doesn't mean fixing them. I learned that the hard way. Our relationship wasn't always easy. I cared about him deeply, but I also felt hurt sometimes by his silence, by the distance I didn't know how to cross. Yet I stayed because I wanted to, believe that my love was enough to heal everything. Maybe I was wrong. Or maybe I was just too young to know how complex relationships really are. When I left for college, we didn't have a big goodbye or dramatic ending. We didn't fight. We just slowly drifted apart. Our relationship ended quietly, like a song fading out. I didn't know how to hold on to something so fragile, and maybe he didn't either. Looking back, I don't regret any of it. He was my first love, and like every first, it taught me lessons that shaped who I am today. I learned that you can't change someone unless they want to change. And even then, it's not your responsibility. I learned that love isn't about fixing someone, but about walking beside them, even when things are tough. Our story may not have had a fairy tale ending, but it was real, it was honest, and for that I am grateful. Even now, when I hear the low, steady sound of cello, I think of him and smile. Not with sadness, but with warmth for the boy who sat across from me and changed my life in ways I didn't expect. The night watches over you now, and our story has come to an end. I hope tonight's tale brought back the memories of your first love. The quiet magic, the heartbeats, and the moments that linger. Thank you for spending this time with me. Sleep tight, and may your dreams be as sweet as those memories. Until next time, good night.